There was an enormously interesting discussion we had. It went, mildly speaking, all over the place. But I think we have some general themes, and themes that were, in one way or another, shared by all those who participated in the discussion. Then it went, as it usually goes. We could have probably been going on with the discussion for 2 more hours, but we had to cut short for very practical reasons. Due to the fact that we are celebrating or not celebrating the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, I would like to start with going back to Martin Luther, which is, of course, something very Finnish to do. What Martin Luther said in Worms 500 years ago was that if you can prove to me on the basis of the Scripture and on the basis of common sense that I'm wrong, then I give in. So what he actually, I think this is revolutionary in many ways, because he actually said that in my worldview, I'm the master. And that's the beginning of modernity in a way. And after that, we, for the following 500 years, we have run into different problems connected with this, I am the master of my worldview. And therefore we have some central key words. Transparency. Without transparency, without being able to look through what people are telling, we won't understand why they are doing that, why they are trying to sell us some thought. And transparency makes it possible for us to believe that what, I think it's in philosophical terms, the person is speaking the truth. And how this information can be used for my good and for our common good. In a much more complicated world, this requires skills, possibilities to understand and read the message. And if we don't understand, if we are not able to read the message, if our literacy rate is low, then we won't be able to distinguish between fake news, hate speech, or profiling. So what we're going to need is more knowledge, and you know that more knowledge is going to be more and more painful for each and every one of us, because the technologies are evolving all the time. I think one of the nicest phrases put forward during the discussion was that a description of Internet some 20 years ago, when we understood that Internet, that's going to open up for a government which is more distributed, that is more open. And all of a sudden, after 20 years, we see that, it didn't come up, or it didn't come out really the way we thought it would come out 20 years ago. So in a way we are, I think there is a Jewish sociologist who always spoke about axial ages. And I think we are experiencing something very axial at the moment. And I said, because I like puns, some of them puns are bad, this new axial age is trumpeted in by the first trumpeter of the world for today, Donald T. One other current in our discussion was narratives. And that was, for me, I remember back in the 80s or 90s when, 80s when postmodernism was sort of on everybody's lips. Narratives were dead. Narratives were nil. Narratives were something we actually should abandon as soon as possible. And all of a sudden, in some of the speeches, they stressed the necessity of narratives. Why? Because there is a need for coherence. If we are able, for us to be able to believe what is said or written, there is a system of coherence, and this system of coherence makes it or creates the ability for us to understand if something is actually genuine or not. So narratives, coherent narratives of the life in which we are living is something very, very central and very interesting. And at the same time, we are running into a wall which is, sometimes back I jumped into a book called The Cultural Lag. We are always lagging behind. And so there are narratives out there. We are slightly lagging behind the narratives, and we aren't always able to distinguish if these narratives are true, if they are genuine, if they are coherent. But without those narratives, I think we are totally lost. And that was pointed out by two of the persons in the panel. In this endeavor to understand what's going on in the world, art is of a special value. Just now, and that's total coincidence, I'm trying to read through 1,350 pages of German literary history from 1918 to 1933, where they go through in which way the narratives actually changes 3 times during those years. So change wasn't something new which we ran into the day before yesterday. Change has always been there. Our ability to understand how things are going to change and how we are changing at the same time is probably one of the challenges we have. And here the role of the civil society and the public sector is of utmost importance, because without a functioning civil society, and one thing which we are challenging with in this very house is that we have civil societies and we have virtual civil societies, and they are perfectly different things. It's very easy to be part of a virtual civil society, but there is no coherence, no guarantee of coherence. There is no way of knowing if we are reading or getting something which is truthful. And the more the civil society gets ripped to pieces by the technological development, the more we are left on the back burner, and the bigger are the challenges we are facing. So just to stop short, I think the discussion was immensely interesting. I think we actually covered the most fundamental challenges we have in front of us, and I felt so uplifted. I think that's also biblical. Uplifted by this discussion, because it, at the same time, even if it was a critical discussion, it actually opened up a small glimmer of hope that we are able to understand and we are able to cope together, we are able to create technologies. And one of the most interesting points in this technology discussion was blockchain, sort of a blockchain system for validating the information infrastructure in which we are living, because then we can identify from where the information comes, who has said it, and we are not living in the somewhat disruptive world of Twitters from the President of the United States. That's, I think, is all for today for my part. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like just to do two quick things, thanking Nils for being very prompt. So, firstly, are there any who were in the conversation who feel there's something being traduced or missed? I don't ask especially because it's Nils, that's my standard approach. And secondly, are there particular questions or comments for clarification to the rapporteur anybody wants to make? Seeing none. So thank you very much.
No, there is one.
Oh, there is one. Yes, please. Say who you are so Nils knows who to respond.
Yes, as expected. Professor Linson from the MNRC. Yes, it's this notion of coherence that makes me a little uncomfortable too. It's also a kind of double-edged sword. I mean, if there's a kind of imposed coherence in autocracies, I mean, there is general coherence, but I mean, coherence can also lead to deceptive results, as I said. That's just one point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we would all be worried about too much coherence. I mean, poor Luther, of course, was almost a victim of coherence, and even after he wrested himself free, there were still sumptuary laws telling us we couldn't wear fur if we weren't noble, and so on in the states of Germany. So, good. Nils, thank you very much, and we'll be able to tell you through the research process where we get to in the next couple of hours. So good luck with your next step.
Thank you.
Now I would like to move, I think there is an order prescribed to me, to Luciano Floridi. So Luciano, you dealt not with the public sphere being disrupted, but the personal sphere. So your turn.